Okay, success after lockdown. So brother EB, I'm in the building today with the brother Lester Young, Path to Redemption. Um, my partner, he may come in a little later, but right now I just want to speak with you and see just talk with you, man, conversate and see how things are going with you because my producer, we seen you on LinkedIn and we seen your story, a little bit of your story, and that took my interest right away with seeing the way you move and your positive path in life. And so if I could just start with who's Mr. Lester Young? Where you came from? Where you was born? Where you was raised?
Cool. I appreciate it. Hey, I would just say this, man. I appreciate you, your partner, and your producer, man, for seeing the value in my story and inviting me to be a guest. So I would like to thank you for that first and foremost. But who is Lester Young? Lester Young is a husband, a father, a son, a brother, and an uncle, and a community servant. A leader, someone who unfortunately found himself inside of an incarceral system at the age of 19 years old, serving life for murder, a murder that I committed. And to this very day, I think something you said early on in the introduction is that when you take a life of another human being, you never leave that walks with you. You know what I'm saying? So part of my thing now is I can't bring the life of that human being back, but what I know that I can do is live my life in a different way that will honor his death and honor his family. You know what I'm saying? So that's who Lester Young is. As I said, I'm a leader that I bring forth. I work with the youth here in South Carolina and across the country, empowering them to help make better choices so that they don't find themselves in a situation like you and I found ourselves in. You know what I'm saying? Serving this a large amount of time in prison. And then, unfortunately, here we are now in our lives. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you today, brother.
Absolutely, and the pleasure is all ours, man. Just having you here with us today. Mm-hmm. So, if I could just just ask where you was from and how your upbringing was when you were young.
I'm from South Carolina. I'm from Hilton Head, South Carolina. Born and raised in Hilton Head, South Carolina. My upbringing was a 2-parent home. Just had some experience. Just growing up, I lost my mother when I was 16 years old, which I truly say that was the thing that really altered my path. Not processing the grief of my mother at 16 years old led me into the streets, and that led to a lot of the poor choices that, unfortunately, as I mentioned to you, that led to me being in prison for life for killing someone over a drug dispute. So, I've been blessed to have a great family. To this day, I'm grateful for the bond that I have with my family, even after all of these years of incarceration. Serving that time, my family did the time. They came to see me. They sent me money. They sent me books. They just breathe hope into me on those calls. And man, it just put me in a position now that I'm eternally grateful to my family and to my wife, who supported me all those years of my incarceration, man. So I'm grateful, bro.
Absolutely. So what I do want to ask is, I always talk about this with individuals such as yourself, like formerly incarcerated, that's home and doing something for the community. I can remember in my youth that I was one of those kids as well, out on the streets selling drugs at the age of 12 to 20 before I was sentenced to 25 years to life. And I remember those positive influences, it wasn't a lot of them, but there was some that came out. I had, for instance, I always tell this story. I had a friend of mine that moved from the block. We were all young, and they moved in the late 80s, and he came back, and he was Muslim, and he used to tell us, he used to try to get us to stop selling drugs. Every time we on the block, he always come and say, "Yo, listen, y'all know this is wrong." And he was once on the block with us. So it came a time where every time we seen him, "Yo, Skip is on the block," and everybody go hide because we didn't want to hear that. So we kind of killed that self-accusing God spirit. Can you share any times when you was out there in the streets, if you had any positive influences and that you might have dismissed?
I would say this, bro. Like I had homeboys. We all were somewhat because we was raised in a good environment. Our family, we made the bad choice of selling drugs. But man, I remember like me and one of my homeboys, man, he went to Job Corps and he came back and he was telling us about the experience he had on Job Corps. He, for the first time, he left the block, right? And he got
Right.
exposed to something else. And I
Yeah.
remember he came telling me about Job Corps, and I was like, man, you know what? I'm tired of selling drugs. I'm like, bro, I think I want to go with you. So he gave me the information. I remember going to sign up for this, for the Job Corps to go where he was going. Man, bro, I tell you, within a couple of weeks, I ended up getting that murder conviction. I ended up getting the murder charge. Like I literally, that was the person that was a positive influence on me that really got me to think about like, yo, man, I need to change my life. I really
Wow.
made the steps to doing it. And it's unfortunate how it happened, but even leading up to my crime, man, I've been already on the process of making that transition to changing my life. But that night, something happened, and unfortunately, that person died, man. You know what I'm saying? So I shot out one of my homeboys for giving me that different perspective. And that same homeboy, through my entire 22 years of incarceration, that same homeboy was the one that supported me my entire time of my incarceration. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
His motto was, if I eat, you're going to eat, meaning he was not in nothing illegal. But as long as I'm making money out here and I got food on my table, you will always have money for canteen, books, and whatever else you need. And he kept that commitment from 1992 to this very day. Me and him are still rocking together. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to my homeboy Frederick Chisholm, man, for being that positive influence
Nice.
for me. You know?
Definitely. Shout out to Frederick. No question
Yeah,
about it.
man, that's my homie, man.
That's the blessing. That's the blessing right there. That
Yeah, you
even
don't
under
know.
the unfortunate circumstances.
And you don't find homeboys that rock with you the entire time of your incarceration. We knew each other from the streets, and then from there, me and this guy, we got even. And unfortunately, he came to prison too, but he came to prison for like a little short period of time. But in that, he transformed his life. You know what I'm saying? So he, at this point, when he came into the prison, I'd already done changed my life. And he was like, bro, you done changed your life. I'm about to step this game up even more. And he changed his life as well, man. And we both became Muslims. And in that process, man, we lived out the Islamic faith inside of prison. Even to when he got out, he still maintained. I'm still maintaining my faith after incarceration as
Absolutely.
well, right? So it's just been a bond that we had from that block. That day we thought about going to Job Corps. A couple weeks later, I found myself in prison in the county for murder. But I couldn't go to Job Corps. I had opportunity to go to. Unfortunately, went to prison. But in that, I found so much redemption and found a sense of peace in that transformation I really was yearning for on that block, man.
Absolutely. And so, talking about change in prison, the transformation that you went through. Can you speak to our audience on just that first day of you going in prison, receiving all that time? How was that for you? And transition into what was that aha moment for you? What actually
I
got
was
you to
I,
change?
I, I always tell people this, man. I'll be perfectly honest with you. My first couple of days, and when the judge sentenced me to life, bro, I didn't care. I mean, I was a 19-year-old arrogant teenager with this mindset that you can't hurt me. I'm Teflon Don. You feel me? That was my mindset, unfortunately, at 19. So going inside of the prison, when I went inside of the prison, man, I went in there with already a mindset that I'm going to keep hustling in prison. But this is a shocking reality. Or the truth was, when I got in prison, I saw one of my big homies that I looked up to on the block, and he was in prison at this time, maybe 3 to 4 years inside of the prison. And he saw that I came in with a life sentence, but I came in with a chip on my shoulder. And he was like, bro, you cannot come in here doing your time like this because you got a life sentence. You got to do something different. And it was because of my homeboy. I call it, his name is David Brown. He was one of the big homies on the block, but inside of the prison, he done transformed his life. And he was the one that sat me down and had that real to real conversation with me about life. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you serving life and you can't be like everybody else, bro. You know what I'm saying? And that right there changed my perspective. And then lastly, I would say, man, in that process of talking with him on a daily basis, man, it's got me in this place in my spirit where I knew what I did was wrong. And I knew I was asking God at this time to forgive me for my crime. And man, I got this voice, brother. This voice told me, saying, God was like, I've forgiven you, but you got to seek forgiveness from the person that you killed. And that was a blow to me, right? Like, how do I speak to the soul? How do I speak to a person that I killed? And in that process, God told me just speak to his spirit. And I spoke to the spirit of this guy that I killed for the first time in my prison cell. I remember on a Friday night after watching this show called Dateline, I remember going to bed, couldn't sleep, woke up crying, and something told me to get on that floor and pray. And that's when I started praying. And God said, you need to pray and ask forgiveness from the person that you killed. And when I did that, my brother, when I got on my knees in the fetus position on that cold cell floor and called this person's name out and asked them to forgive me, man, I immediately felt like a ton of bricks was removed off of my heart and out of my spirit. That gave me a level of freedom to move differently. And I remember in that night, I told this person, I said, because you have forgiven me, I will live my life in a manner that will honor your life for the rest of my life. And I will live a life of redemption. This is where my organization, Path to Redemption, comes from, is from that night in that prison cell, making amends with the person that I killed, speaking to his spirit and trying to find a way to make peace with it. And from that, here I am today, still living this path to redemption, but most importantly, striving to honor the life that I took. I cannot bring his life back, but what I can do is honor it by preventing another young person from pulling the trigger and taking another human being's life.
That's real deep. That's deep, and it have me in a place right now that when I look at it, I think that my transition and just my spiritual being was so similar to what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
So I was one of those guys that got it early.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, within 3 years of
Me
that
too. About 3
25
years
years
is
of
my
life,
my window.
yeah,
My window is
I
about
said
two to 3 years.
I started taking this, and
Yeah,
I just received my GED the first year that I
yeah,
came up. They took the college program from the prison that I was in,
yeah,
so
yeah.
we didn't have much education there where I was at. This facility called Clinton Correctional
Yeah.
Facility, way up north in New York State,
Mm-hmm.
and up there though we had brothers that was attending what I would call like self-help therapeutic classes
Mm-hmm.
for themselves that they created for themselves. And
Yeah, yeah.
so I started to get into these things, these positive classes, and got into the law library, worked in there for 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
Got my legal research management certification. I just was trying to get everything positive, do everything
Yeah,
positive because I was tired, within myself. I used to close the gate when they called the yard in the gym. And that
mm,
was like unheard of for a young person like myself,
yeah,
coming up and receiving all of this big number. But I
mm,
was going through what I call this self introspection of
mhm.
myself,
Same,
and
bro.
going through that. And it's so similar that you say that because going through that, I remember that I used to ask, for tell myself that I need to forgive myself,
Mm-hmm.
and how do I do that?
Yeah,
And we had this class where you take response. It's called a long termers responsibility program,
got it.
and I got into that. And when I got into that, we used to have victims that come in,
Mm,
one victim every other month, but no victims from our cases,
yeah,
but
yeah.
just somebody that was a victim of a crime.
Mm,
And and there and there is where I went through that transition within myself.
mm,
And we also have this project where it's a program that you write to the
yeah, yeah,
victim's family, and I
yeah,
did that as well. I began to do that, and I think that at that time I began to kind of let go of how I was feeling and all
yeah,
of this that I was taking on within myself, still struggling with
yeah,
me taking someone's life that ain't never coming back,
yeah.
so I think that helped me as well. So
Mm,
when you say that, it's amazing that we I look at it that we have to go through this self introspection
But
of
see,
ourselves.
this is the thing, right? Is that inside of the prisons, that this is where our lived experience now has so much value, right? The people who are
Absolutely.
incarcerated, we have so much value to offer the correctional environment. One is that you and I went into prison at 19, 20 years old for a violent crime such as murder. Can't even wrap our mind around the emotional and psychological impact of
Impact.
a violent crime that it will have on you, right?
That's right.
And it starts messing with you. So what I saw inside of the system is a lot of the men who was dealing with these, had committed these violent crime, they didn't have an outlet to release it or to process it. So I started noticing that they were engaging in a lot of self-destructive behavior because there was an unsettledness in their spirit that they didn't, no one was giving them the proper tools and the resources and how to process it, right? So this is for me, going back again to when I started realizing that this is what I had to do with my life and bringing about a level of peace in my life through atonement. It was not somebody telling me like, listen, when you go to prison, man, at some point you're going to be confronted with the death of this person that you killed. You're going to have to deal with that. No one told me this stuff until I said, sitting in that cell by myself, lonely at night, that's when the reality hit. And I'm so grateful that I did not take the negative path like so many men that I know in prison that could not deal with it. They started self-medicating themselves. They become more violent towards each other because they were fighting a battle within themselves and no one showed them how to release it. So this is why when I speak to correctional staff now about the value of credible messenger, peer-to-peer support
Nice.
mentors, is because we be able to bring a level of expertise into that environment to help men or women who are in the situations process the psychological things that will happen that only someone who committed a crime, has been in that environment, can identify and understand that. And that's where you and I have now today what we call the keys that can help you unlock that and be able to process and be able to navigate that landscape.
Absolutely. And so I work for a non-for-profit organization called Exodus Transitional Community.
Mhm.
And, we do go back into the facility, to the
Yeah.
prisons the very prisons that we came out of.
Mhm.
We also help with the transitioning, upon coming back into
Mhm.
society with housing and
Yeah.
all of those things. And it's crazy that when you speak, because you right on point. Everything is on point with me, because when I look at, like I said, when I was younger, I
Mhm.
used to have, like, we know right from wrong. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? So okay, when I look at today, how I look at myself today, when I look at when I was young, I I say to myself, I always say this too, like, I would never have ever, knowing what I know today, sold that poison to my community.
Mhm.
That's something that I would never have done,
Yeah.
if I, knowing what I know today.
Mhm.
However, I do realize, and I step back and look at when I was young, you know, I knew right from wrong. I
Mhm.
knew that was wrong. Even under my circumstances,
Yeah.
that's all I seen. I didn't see, I didn't see the work part of, I didn't see that I had another avenue to walk in, but I knew it was there.
Mhm.
When I look back now, I can't deny that.
Yeah.
So I knew that. So what I was doing, what I call it, is I had the self-accusing spirits on me. I had the God on this side, the
Mhm.
devil on this side,
We
and
all
I
do.
used to kill. I used to kill the God in me all the time.
Mhm.
Because all the signs used to come to me. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? I went to jail. I went to prison, and received a 1 to 3 my first prison time.
Mhm.
1 years to 3 years parole.
Yeah.
And I came home and it was like lockstep. But guess what? I did the program. I went to electronic school while I was on parole. I got off parole successfully, but I was still in the streets.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew it was wrong. My point is I knew it. So now I could see how I was just killing the God in me every
Yeah.
time. So it was that battle that was going on. So now coming into prison, that's an even bigger battle, because guess what? In the yard in New York State prison, I can only
Mhm.
speak for, because I've never been nowhere else, but
Yeah.
I see that most of our states is similar. The
Yeah.
prison systems are similar. There's no real big difference. And
Mhm.
so when I went in there, the yard, in the gym was just like the streets.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So that was another that was where I began to say to myself, okay, maybe if you lock in the cell, because this you the only one in here. You
Mm-hmm.
able to get your cries out in here. You're
Mm-hmm.
able to, successfully write to your family, your loved ones. So I said, start staying in there more. And I
Yeah.
think that's where the process came, where I began to kill that devil
Mm.
and let the God in me live.
It's a good point that you make, right? Going back again to the environment. Prison, the way prison is set up, it's not set up for therapeutic, it's not set up for healing, it's not set up to rehabilitate in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? And I'm speaking from my lived experience as someone who went to prison in 1992 and got out in 2014. There was nothing
Right.
therapeutic about prison. Now it's great that we see a lot of programs now shifting to that therapeutic way. But could you imagine, or even you experienced it, that to sit in prison dealing with the level of trauma that you endured prior to your incarceration, right? The trauma that you experienced prior to your incarceration, now you being traumatized more for the prison sentence and the crime you committed, and now you're thrown into an environment where they say, suck it up, be a man, and don't cry. So now you sit in prison for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, still have not released a tear because you have to be masculine in this environment. So that's a very hurtful thing, right?
Absolutely. I just want to stop you for 1 second because I want you to
Yeah.
continue that thought, because we need to talk about that real quick.
Okay, on the beat.
So on our StreamYard, this is our
Yeah.
cell therapy
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I saw
You
that.
know what? And in this segment, we speak about the mental health. We
Oh,
speak about the psychological, part of this whole journey that we go on dealing with incarceration.
yeah.
So if you could, like, just tell me what you think about that.
I would,
How important is our mental health part here?
yeah, mental health is so important. Like I said, imagine, I'm gonna speak for me, 19 years old, entering inside of a prison system for life, lost his mother 3 years prior to him being incarcerated, still processing grief of his mother, and now to sit in prison for life for killing someone. I'm punished. I've been given the sentence, but no one never think about the person who commit the crime, that they're going to experience a level of grief too, not from their freedom, but from the law, the life that they took. So now
Mhm.
you trying to struggle with that. So now you in this environment. Well, you get in prison, they give you this. Everything in prison is about hyper masculinity. You got to be rough. You got to be tough. You can't cry. You got put this time on your back. But the reality is that stuff start affecting you psychologically and emotionally. It start becoming like an ether. It start eating at your spirit, right? And before you know
Absolutely.
it, now you sit in there. Longer you sit in there, I believe this. I've said this many times before, that a man or woman who walks in prison, they cannot say that prison have not impacted them. Just like a man cannot walk in the rain and don't get wet. Prison would dampen you. It would affect you
Absolutely.
psychologically. You see what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? So this is why I said today, from being in prison in the 90s to 2014, we need more therapeutic programs focusing on not just punishment of the individual who committed the crime, but helping them process their level of grief for committing the crime. And that's
Absolutely.
a cell therapy, as you mentioned, cell
Yes, sir.
therapy. We had to, unfortunately, for you and I, we had to do our own form of therapy
Yes,
through
sir.
reading books
Exactly.
and getting mentored by someone else. No one, a psychologist, never came and talked to me. I walked out of prison, brother. I walked out of prison after serving 22
Me too.
years, and no one sat down with me and even said, "Mr. Young, how are you feeling?" Even before I
Absolutely.
left from prison. You know what I'm saying? So it's a real
Same here.
it's a real issue, bro.
That's
And
right. Same here. Same. It's definitely. And I am of the belief that everyone that goes to prison, I don't care how. I don't care if you did a year.
you're gonna
You
be infected.
you have some you affected, and I would dare to say that you have PTSD.
Oh,
Some
absolutely.
folks. traumatic stress disorder when
Absolutely,
going in there and
absolutely,
coming
bro.
out.
Hey, bro, like, listen, bro, like, I appreciate the conversation, but this
No
is real
question.
man conversation that we have to have.
Mm-hmm.
Post incarceration syndrome is a real thing, right? And we're starting to hear more people speak about it, right? But it's real. It's why I say it's real, because, man, imagine for me walking out of prison after 22 years when the world technologically had shifted, right? And now I'm walking into a world that the world is different. And now I'm standing in the grocery store and there's a self-serving line. The people move different. The colors of clothing that people wear is different. I've been used to wearing a brown uniform and seeing a dark blue pair of khakis and a light blue or white shirt. That's all I saw. And then for people who come to see you, you may see a few other different color clothing. But brother, all that stuff impact you. You man, listen. Yeah,
All
bro.
of it.
We can
That's
talk about
right.
it a
That's
lot, man. I'm
facts. That
saying that it's
no, that's
real, and we
serious.
need to, again, for people like us who've survived it, it's important for these podcasts. It's important that individuals who are speaking about the impact of incarceration, your voice, my voice, have to be centered in the conversation. You cannot talk about PTSD if you've never been in prison. You know what I'm saying? Because we can give you the real understanding of what this really is, man. It really impacts you. It impacts your relationship with your family. Like, and I stop here. Like, I remember coming home. Imagine being on visit only for 3 hours with your family every other month. And now you drop after 26, 22 years, you drop back into your family circle. Bro, you know how hard it is to have a conversation with your family after about 15 minutes? You trying to figure out what to say. You thinking about you in your own house and you looking at the door like, man, when the CEO coming to get me, take me back there, right? Because that's the condition. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna stop, man.
And it's hard to shed now. You talking about it. That's the truth. And it's hard to shed that condition, for each person, man. It's some people, like I said, I seen them, they never made it. Like they made it out and then they died, a couple of days later, a couple of weeks later, because they engulfed themselves with death. You know what I mean? But I can't do it out here. I can't do this. And I just can you talk about that too? Because you just were speaking on it. You just touched on it. That day when you first came home, like if you can remember that day, how for you?
Like I said, bro, walking out of prison after 22 years came with a lot of emotional trauma. The shock, the cultural shock, the depression, things that nobody tell you about. No one told me that when I got out of prison, I was going to be struggling with survival guilt, meaning that I left a group of people that was my family for 20 years. Yes, I have my biological family. I'm walking in and they're hugging me, but the reality is they don't know who I've evolved in becoming, how I became. They don't know. They only assume, and unfortunately, your family treats you like the 19-year-old kid they remember. They don't have any connection with the 41-year-old Lester, right? So they still speak to you. They still recall only the 19-year-old memories, not the 41-year-old memories, because they don't know. So all of those things, man, start affecting you psychologically. Now you're trying to figure out, how do I navigate back into my family? And now you're dealing with depression. At 10 o'clock, you're going to your room and you're free. You're going to your room because at 10 o'clock in prison, that's the time they lock down. So now you sit in your room looking at the walls because you don't know what to do. These are things, as I said, why lived experience matter in the reentry space, why we need people like us to be able to share these experiences with men and women who are coming home. And even for those who are designing programs, you cannot design a reentry program without talking to someone who's been there and know what they felt like to be depressed, what cultural shock felt like going into a grocery store, walking into a restaurant and trying to order something, and you don't know what to order because for 20 years you've been told what to eat and how to eat, when to eat, and eat within 5 minutes, and you need to go back out. You need to be out of the cafeteria in 5 minutes. So you eating like this. All of that stuff is conditioning, and we have to break that. That's reality. You know what I'm saying? And that's where our voices matter in this discussion.
Absolutely. Well said too. Like, that's
my lane, bro.
that's
I
the key.
calm down. I get hyped in this joint.
No, that's serious, man. I want you to ask me, when do the reentry, when does that start?
I believe you know, we hear a lot of people say reentry starts the day a person's incarcerated. But when I truly believe that, I truly believe reentry starts the day a person gets incarcerated. There's a paradigm shift. But like I tell a lot of my Muslim brothers,
That's important. Go ahead. Sorry for cutting you off. That's important. Yep.
what?
This is when the paradigm
Yeah,
shifts
it has
is
to be a
when you get
paradigm shift.
incarcerated.
Yeah, because not everybody, you know, because again, like a lot of individuals in prison, they're in self-denial about the impact of their incarceration. A lot of men in prison live in a deep level of denial, and they have done convinced themselves that ain't nothing wrong with them. A lot of the brothers done convinced their girlfriends, their wives, their family, ain't nothing wrong with me, baby. I'm handling this prison time, right? But the reality is, you have been impacted, right? And you don't know you've been impacted, and you done convinced this girl that this relationship you in, you done convinced him that you're not impacted. And they be like, oh, he's not institutionalized, but he is absolutely institutionalized, right?
And you convince them that you're innocent when you're not.
And that's just
So
part of
it's
what happens.
a lot
That's
of trauma
what
that
happens. It's a lot of stuff that happens with that, you know. But going back to that point is that we have to understand that you cannot again walk in the rain of incarceration and don't expect to get wet. You're going to get wet, and it's going to impact you. It's going to impact your family, and it's going to impact all those around you in this situation, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we could talk about just talk about after that, after being released, what was your steps? You know, what you do to be where you at today, being this you know, incredible messenger, doing the things that you're doing, and speak a little bit more about what you do out there.
Yeah, I would say this, my brother. I appreciate that question. One of my mentors told me that whenever I get out of prison, he says that one of your biggest challenge of you not returning back to prison, or you returning back to prison or going again, is going to be your paradigm shift. You have to have a paradigm shift. And he says that when you get out of prison, you got to put yourself in a position to win. So when you ask that question about reentry, I prepared for my success before I walked out of prison. Like what I'm doing right now, like Path to Redemption, I wrote this program out while I was in prison. I prepared my mind for release before I got out of prison. Like behind me is majority of my books that I read while I was in prison, from Robert Kiyosaki to Hill Hopper to I'm talking about all of these books are up here as a result of me investing. I would choose when my family would send money to me in prison. When they would send money to me, I would invest in education myself, reading the books that will prepare me for my level of success. So when you ask what put me in a position to win after my incarceration, preparation, and consistency. Those are the things that prepared me when I walked out of prison. So when I walked out, I knew that I had the hurdles, but I had a vision. I had a vision. I not only did I just was talking game. There's a lot of guys in prison that you and I know talked a good game, but when they got out of prison, they dropped the ball. I was not talking, bro. I invested in my education. That, man, you know, the crazy thing in prison, I hated in prison to this day, I hate, is that they say you're going to only have 10 books. If you have 11 books as a contraband, why should you limit me to books in prison, man? You know what I'm saying? But I can have $300 worth of grocery in my
groceries. Yeah.
I can have all of the soups and tater chips and sodas, but I can't only allow to have 10 books in prison. You don't see a contradiction in that? You can only have 10 books. If you have 11 books, it's contraband, but I can have $200 worth of food in my cell. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I was that guy that rebelled against that particular policy. I needed 100 books in my room. I don't care about the food. Give me 100 books. So that's where my success came from. I started investing in myself way before I walked out of prison, and then I surrounded myself with people that was going to help me be successful inside of prison by surrounding myself with mentors in prison. And when I came home, I did the exact same thing. 2 weeks after me getting out of prison, brother, I knocked on the DJJ door in South Carolina, asking them to let me come in. That's how committed I was to doing what I'm doing right now around the Incredible Messenger, mentoring youth. Is that I walked out of prison with that mission. They say, oh, we can't let you in now because you have a felony. You just got out of prison. You need to build something. So what I did, I built something. I built a program. I built my organization. So now you can't deny me. I have a pardon. I built something, and I'm showing you the consistency, and the passion to serve our community. So what we've been doing for the last 10 years is doing exactly that. Serving our community, being an example of what redemption looks like for the men and women who are coming home from prison. That's what we're all about.
Excellent, and that's preparation. You know,
Preparation.
I tell everybody that that's key. You have to prepare. If you don't prepare, then you're doomed. You're
Yeah.
doomed in your preparation. Because even if you waited till you got out here, you know, you still have to prepare when you out here to doing something,
You're gonna
to
be behind
getting
the eight
something.
ball. You behind
No
the
question.
you we already 20 years behind the eight ball, 27, 26
Exactly.
years, right? So if you don't like get ahead of the ball now by getting the education while you're in prison, reading the books, connecting with family,
Right.
connecting with mentors, but even when you come home from prison, brother, I think this is so important too that a lot of brothers miss. A lot of brothers miss when they walk out of prison, they feel that they got it. They feel that they got it. Meaning like you're going back again to a false masculinity, this
Yeah.
man thing, like, yo, I don't need your help, bro. I'm good. Why would you deny the help of a man who's been successful out here in 10 years after serving 22 years? Why would you deny that man from helping you? Only thing that is causing you to deny that man's assistance is your pride and your ego. Your
That's
pride
right.
and your ego is
Um,
causing you now to not want to accept someone's advice. Like I would say,
mhm.
brother, like, hey, you in this relationship with this woman, or you in this, bro, this is what you might need to do before you keep going forward, or you're going to crash out.
Absolutely.
They call you after the fire has happened and say, could you help me? Like, bro, I've been trying to help you for the last 3 years, but you didn't want to
Yeah.
help because of
Hmm.
your ego and your pride, right? So
And
all of these things that we have to understand as we talking about transition, credible messengers, mentors after prison is so essential in helping a person navigate life after incarceration.
and you know, I dare to say that's another paradigm shift at that time that you just were speaking about, and there's an opportunity there for one, and you have to be able to grab that opportunity by the horns
Yeah,
and take it and be humble. You know what I mean? Because you that's exactly what happens here too, everywhere.
yeah,
I would dare to say, you know, coming out of prison, you have these dudes that think that they arrived. I got this,
I got this.
and you don't, you know,
And I
and
made the mistake too. I made that mistake too, but
that's right. And
having
we could go into the therapy, seeking therapy. A lot of brothers don't. That's like, huh? That's unheard of. You know,
I'm
I don't
good.
need somebody else to help me. I'm good. Like I don't need, you know. So, you know, it's a lot of things that, you know, like I said, like we talked about that trauma.
Yeah.
It comes in all different shape, forms, and
Mhm,
fashion.
mhm.
With trauma, and looking looking ahead, you know, if you could real quick just share with
Mhm.
an individual that is, because there are a lot of, before I say this, but there are a lot of people that's still locked up, that's transitioning. There
Mhm.
are a lot of us. Um, I am I'm a part of a huge network, an alumni network in New York State,
Mhm.
and it's about 200 of us.
Yeah.
That's in the community doing something for the community, giving back to the
So,
community positively now, not going back. You
yeah.
know, and we all, you know, 99.5% of us are lifers. You
Mm,
know, that came home with life.
mm.
I just got off parole August 10th,
Congrats, bro.
2023.
I
Thank
know
you.
that was a
You
relief.
know, for life parole, you know, and that's right, no question, you know. However, for me, now I know this ain't for everybody, but for me, I would dare to say it was a walk in the park
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. I get
because
it.
I already had 4 resumes done prior to me, you know, being released. 4 different resumes, you know,
Yeah,
for things that I'm have, you know, my expertise in, and that was not, employment is nothing for me
yeah,
when I
yeah.
came home. That was, you know, I already knew I created this platform at least 10 years before I came home. And so,
Same,
you
same.
know, we've been, you know, doing this for 10 years, and we go around, well, we just begin to go around to different states with
Mm.
our podcast, you know, and we also bringing this to the networks, you know.
That's what's up. That's what's
Um
up.
and so you know, in saying that, what would you say to, you know, those brothers that you did, because we didn't leave them behind, because we both still are able to do our part with helping them in their transition,
Mm.
even though, with us out here on this side too now.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
what do you say to, what would you say to them, man, in terms of coming home and you know, thinking it's hard to get employment in? things
It's
like
not
that.
hard. The only barrier to your success after incarceration is your mindset.
It's you.
That
That's
it's
right.
you, bro. Like if you was a guy that if you took the energy that you had when you was in the streets to do wrong, and you get out of here and you take that energy and do right, bro, there's nothing can stop you from being successful, right? It's nothing going to stop you. But going back again, that it has to be a paradigm shift for a man or a woman who walking out of prison. Your only limitation is the way you think. If you come out here with a victim mindset, thinking that you're the victim, pull me, woe me, everybody's against me, then the chances are you're not going to be successful. The chances are you may go back to prison or find yourself in a situation which you don't like. So those are the two things I tell brothers, man, and women when they walk out of prison is that you got to leave that victim mindset at the door. You cannot take this out back into the real world. And you have to make sure that you've made the investment in yourself, meaning having a paradigm shift, a mind shift to understand, man, that once you walk out of prison, there is so much opportunity for you. If you survive prison for whatever many years in prison, this should be a cakewalk for you to be
That's
successful.
right.
Because guess what? This is there's no
Nice.
boundaries. You can like right now,
Nice.
you're sitting here, you and I'm in South and you're in New York, and you started a podcast using your lived experience to leverage your expertise. So there's no limitation anymore. There shouldn't be no reason why you don't be successful. It's gonna
Absolutely.
be here, bro. It's gonna be here, and you having a big mindset, believing that somebody owes you something. Nobody
Absolutely.
owes you nothing, man.
And I'm still learning this technology. This technology still kicking me in the butt, but you
Brother,
hear me?
keep
I'm
doing
getting
it. You
no question.
jumping in the deep end of the pool and you're learning it. And that's the
No
thing. A lot of
question.
brothers
Right.
are not wanting to learn this stuff. So now they don't even know how to set up an email list. They don't know how to set up direct
That's right.
deposits. And you already, the more and more you run away from technology, the more and more you're going to be further away
Away
from you
from
even acclimating back into this world.
succeeding. That's right. From you succeeding.
Yeah.
Period. That's
Yeah.
the truth. If you could you? Because I seen you on TEDx.
Yeah.
Like TEDx came into Sing Sing Correctional Facility.
Yeah. I saw
Um,
that.
yeah, and they left. I got transferred to a lower classification prison when we were about to,
Do the
when
thing.
I was about to do a TEDx. So I was distraught to say the least when I left and I didn't get a chance to. Can you share your experience with that? How was that for you?
Well,
Like
I mean, going back again
that
to the
play for
power.
you personally?
Yeah, the power of manifestation, the power of visualizing something and then preparing. What remember I mentioned to you, preparation, and consistency. I remember watching a TED talk inside of prison, and I put in my mind, I said, yo, the day I get out of prison one day,
That's right.
I'm going to do a TED talk, right? I'm going to do a TED talk. And it took some years.
Manifested that.
I manifested
That's
that.
right.
Right, I manifested, and one day I was doing a workshop in this place called Ridgeland, South Carolina, and this lady invited me to come do a presentation, a workshop on my book called The 5 Stages of Incarceration. The lady told me say it was going to be like 100 people there. Got there was no more than about 10 people in the room. My wife always telling me to pour into 10 people like I'm pouring into 1,000 people. I poured into these people. When I got through, this lady said, hey, have you ever thought about doing a TED Talk, Lester? I said, yes, I have. And I just said, I don't know who I need to connect with to get this started. She said, well, I know the organizer who's doing the TED Talk. She said, will you be willing to do the TED Talk like right now? Could you give me a presentation, a 7 to 8 minute presentation, so that we can go ahead and submit this right now? I was like, yeah, going back into preparation. In
That's
prison, I
right.
learned how to speak, public speaking in prison. And that's how it happened, man. The opportunity came for me to stand on that stage to share my story. And I spoke about the power of redemption and why it is so important to address the collateral consequences tied to a person's felony conviction after incarceration, man. You know what I'm saying? So
That's like that 1 minute elevator talk preparation for me when I hear that.
yeah, in prison, that's what we do. If you've been an educator and reading books, you learn how to prepare, and that's what I manifested, brother. By the grace of God, this woman saw something in me in this presentation. I was not disappointed because they told me the event planner told me it's going to be at least 100 people there. 10 people showed up. I poured into them like there was 100 people, and that opportunity
Nice.
came for me to do this TED talk.
Nice. And
So,
so for you, like personally, like spiritually, or how was that for you? Just that feeling, man.
Beautiful. I could and say this right here, bro. I did the TED talk in the same town I committed my murder. Right, the same place where I was found guilty in. God brought me back to the same spot, the same
Wow.
environment, the same community, to now stand on a large stage like a TEDx stage, and to now share my story of redemption, like
Wow.
telling them like within two miles from here I committed murder, and now I'm standing on this stage speaking about it in a positive way, the redemption aspect of it. To me, that was like, man, it was full circle for me, and just showed me the power of faith, the power of belief and resilience, and the power of manifestation. Whatever you want, man, if you just stay true, pure in your heart, man, it will be manifested because it was meant for you. God is a God that continue to bless you when you live in the right way and you have pure intentions, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to thank you too, man, just for
Always, man.
today, man, and just for the word, because that was the word for me. Just you, just I guess plant that seed too, man, and our followers, because like I said, my whole mission is to
Mhm.
reduce this recidivism rate that they project that so high, and that once you're in prison, you're going back. And so this is what society sees. They think that we all, because we were in prison, we our last bad choice
Mhm.
that we made, when
Yeah.
we far from that.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of men and women that's across this country that disproves that all the
Yeah.
way, and we here to highlight that and
Yeah.
highlight those, and this is what this platform is for. If
Thanks,
you
man.
if you would like to, plug your website, where
Yeah.
people could get in touch with you at, and there, that, like, here, we
I
want you to.
appreciate that, man. I would just say again, I appreciate you creating a platform. Thanks, brother, for highlighting that. That's my recent book, the Path of Redemption Anthology. That's my fourth book. And this is
Yeah,
the collaborate anthology. It's a collaboration of people who had been incarcerated, like you and I, are now inside of the Department of Juvenile Justice, that is now giving back to the youth. We go in there from Monday through Sunday, from 9 to 8 o'clock at night. We're in
right.
there helping the young people make better choices, showing them that there is a possibility, helping them with the paradigm shift, helping them understand that there's power in redemption. You know what I'm saying? So that's my recent book right there. You can find it at pathofredemption.org. Support it. It's a collaboration of people, man, showing you that we are not the worst mistake in which we made, that we can turn our lives around. And I close with this, brother. One of the most beautiful things that I've come to understand is how the creator, Allah, God, whatever your faith is, how the
Mhm.
creator gives us this amount of time on this earth to make a mistake, but then some of us have been given a certain amount of a little more time to turn that mistake into something positive. Man, there's nothing more beautiful than see someone who get their life together. That is nothing more beautiful to see. Like, you had you just a third, what says a 3%, just a little third degree shift in your thinking, change your entire life. Now
Absolutely.
that's what you and I are doing. We're now creating a legacy for those who are formerly incarcerated, giving you no excuse. And then we created a legacy in the community now that is going to inspire the other people to see that, yo, I don't want to go down that path. I don't want to do this. So that's the power, man, of redemption and second chance, man.
No question.
You know what I mean? So I appreciate you inviting me on your platform, brother.
No question. And
Um,
that's my partner's theme. No excuses.
mm,
Yeah. So we definitely got to have you on with my partner.
definitely, let's link
In
back
the
up.
coming weeks or months. But
Yes, man.
definitely sooner than later, if appreciated. And when we do schedule to come to South Carolina, we definitely want to stay in touch to
Bro,
let you know
pull
we
up.
coming down, because we pulling up. We gonna make sure we cover success after lockdown in every state
Have
in
you
this
thought about
country.
getting this inside of, like, I'm always looking at that as like, like it's great that we're having these conversations, but also just thinking about how do we get this broadcast into the correctional
Into the
environment.
correction. That's right, because we
Like,
have tablets here in New York
yeah,
State
yeah.
too.
Like, thinking about, I would just say, bro, like, I would just encourage you to like find ways, because you and I can talk about it. But if
That's
the brothers and sisters behind the wall don't get a chance to hear our words, it almost falls on deaf ear, right? It'll inspire your listeners. It will inspire a few of them to make some actionable steps. But you and I know the power of you and me walking back into a prison.
Into that. That's right,
Bruh.
That's right. And you know what I also know too? What else I also know that you're right. That's
Bro.
also notice that society, and this
Mhm.
is how I know we got it, because whenever I speak, and I speak to a lot of people
Mhm.
that's business, that's entrepreneurs, that's
Yeah.
CEOs, and when they hear our story
Yeah.
and they see what we're doing, they are in awe.
Mhm. That's
They just can't
powerful.
believe, like, wow, like y'all, you really got your masters in prison, like,
Yeah.
and you really came home and you doing this. So I know that we on the right path.
Yeah, you're on
But
the right path. And that's why I say we got to get into those prisons, bro. Like
that's
find
right.
a way.
That's a fact. I'm
Find a
already
way.
trying to get on it. I'm
All right,
already, and
bro.
I appreciate that too.
That's
You
what's
know what
up.
I mean? We definitely.
Mhm.
So any last words, Martin,
I
before we
would just
close this out, man?
say again, brother, thank you for this opportunity. And for those who get a chance to listen to the replay or listening to it now, and you have never been in prison, don't think that this message doesn't relate to you, because we've come to find and understand that there's more than just a physical prison. There's an emotional and mental prison. So what we have went through, we survived the physical prison, but unfortunately, some people in our society still is an emotional and mental prison. So you can take some of the advice from what we're sharing to create a paradigm shift in your life to allow you to be able to break free from your prison so that you can continue to live your fullest life. It's like you and like to be a person who served 22 years in prison and to walk out of prison and living his best life, not because of money, but because I changed my mindset and I found a deeper level of peace. That money, all of the money I made in the streets doing wrong, none of that can be able to give me the joy that I find by just giving back and paying it forward to the young people or those members of our society. So I would just tell you, work on your mind, work on your spirit, and continue to bring about a true redemption by that means.
And that's success in your own right.
That's
On
success after
success
your
after
own
lockdown.
lockdown.
That's right. Appreciate you. And
All right,
stay
bro.
in touch, brother. I appreciate this. So my partner, he definitely gonna be mad because he couldn't make it today. But
Oh, no worries, no worries. Keep me
we
posted,
definitely gonna
man.
get
Keep me posted.
no question. Then you'll receive a full, recording of this,
Okay.
to do you want to do with it. And
Yeah.
we appreciate you.
All right, my brother. Have a great night. Peace.
Society. You as well.